Coming to Acorn TV.
There's a killer on the loose.
Brooke Shields stars in the new original murder mystery, You're Killing Me.
You spin some crackpot theory, and I find the evidence.
I solve mysteries for a living. I think I'm good to go.
Murder has met its match.
You cannot be here. This is a police investigation.
I've written you.
What does that mean?
He was a big city cop with a small jurisdiction.
Boomers are so cute when they flirt.
You're Killing Me. All new episodes. Now on Acorn TV.
Picture this. It's the end of a long week. You're unwinding in the tub, listening to your favorite true crime podcast. And then chronic hives come back. Again. In the middle of the episode. What a wet blanket. Looks like another spell of itchy, swollen, red, or skin-colored hives. If you have chronic spontaneous urticaria or CSU, there may be a different treatment option. Worried about your chronic hives interrupting our next episode? Learn more at treatmyhives.com/garage. Welcome to True Crime Garage. Wherever you are, whatever you are doing, thanks for listening. I'm your host, Nick, and with me, as always, is a man with sexier legs than Gary Sinise. Here is the captain.
Some say they're magic legs. It's good to be seen and good to see you. Thanks for listening. Thanks for telling a friend.
This week, we are overboard with excitement as we are sipping on Jet Boat Citra Hazy IPA from the Water Dogs at Harbor Brewing Company in beautiful Lake Villa, Illinois. Jet Boat is a hazy IPA brewed with Citra hops. It's a crowd pleaser with a soft, pillowy base with bright citrus and pine. It's a perfect IPA for a summer boat cruise. ABV 6.5%, garage grade 4.25 bottle caps out of 5. And let's give some thanks and praise to our good garage friends. First up, a cheers to Robin Jennings from Morrisville, PA.
And a big "we like your jib" goes out to Jessica from Connecticut.
Next, here's a cheers to Laura Painter in Parrish, Florida, and a special shout out to the men and women of the Round Lake Fire Department in Illinois. Cheers to you, and cheers to everyone that we just mentioned, because they went to truecrimegarage.com and contributed to this week's beer fund. And for that, we thank you.
Yeah, BWRUN, beer run. For everything true crime, check out truecrimegarage.com. And if you need more True Crime Garage for your earballs, check us out on Patreon or Apple Podcast subscription. And that's enough of the business.
All right, everybody, gather around, grab a chair, grab a beer. Let's talk some true crime.
Today is National Missing Children's Day. President Ronald Reagan declared the commemoration in 1983. The day was meant to honor the life of 6-year-old Eton Pates, who went missing on May 25, 1979 in Manhattan. Pates' case garnered nationwide attention and sparked prevention and education around missing children. We spoke with a representative from the State Division of Criminal Justice Services about their prevention and education efforts.
When children go missing, either runaway or abductions, and the importance to be able to have close communication with not only the families, but community organizations and law enforcement agencies that are doing the work. And so I view this as a spectrum of raising awareness, doing preventative efforts, but then also having a strong response to make sure that we're reuniting families wherever possible.
According to the New York State Division of Criminal Justice, in 2024, the state had over 12,000 reported missing children's cases. Over 11,000 of them were runaway cases, and stats show majority of those cases were white and black girls between the ages of 13 and 15. Roughly 7,000 of those children were returned home. Over 4,000 were found.
Timothy Wiltsey entered this world on August 6, 1985 in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. His father was George Wiltsey, a man who had grown up in Walker, Iowa. His mother, Michelle Ledzinski, originally from Lawrence Harbor, New Jersey. Their relationship started the year before Timothy's birth, when Michelle, only 16 years old at the time, traveled out to visit her brother. During that visit, she met George, and what began as a teenage relationship moved quickly into something much more serious. Before long, Michelle was pregnant. Now, not long after Timothy was born, Michelle made a decisive choice about where she wanted her life to be. Within only a few months of giving birth, she chose to leave Iowa and returned to her home state of New Jersey, taking her infant son with her. She said that she did not like Iowa, describing it as dull and isolating. It was an unfamiliar place for her where she knew few people, and she felt cut off from the support that she wanted and needed in her life at that time. Now, in the aftermath of that move back to New Jersey, Michelle would later say that George at some point became abusive in that relationship. Whatever the exact nature of their conflict, the result was clear. George did not remain a presence in Timothy's life. From that point forward, George had essentially no role in raising his son. He did not pay child support. There were also claims that this distance was, at least in part, exactly what Michelle wanted, that she requested that he stay away. George would later say that when he tried to reach out, she would return the mail that he would send for his son, Timothy. By the time Michelle and Timothy were settled back in the state of New Jersey, the father-son connection had pretty much completely been severed. Michelle and Timothy first lived with her sister and brother-in-law in South Amboy, New Jersey. They stayed there for about 2 years. And after that, Michelle moved out on her own, renting the first of what would be 3 apartments, all of them in the same town. She was a single mother with limited formal education. She had dropped out of high school in her late teens. And so she worked a patchwork of low-paying jobs to keep their small household afloat. Her work was largely clerical, office tasks, secretarial duties, and at one point, employment in a legal office. She also worked in retail and spent some time as a bank teller.
Yeah, it seemed like she had a tough time keeping down a job.
Michelle was determined, however, not to go on welfare, and she declined public assistance even as money stayed tight. Instead, when she needed help, she relied on support from her father, who was willing to step in at different points in her life. There were stretches when Michelle did work 2 jobs at the same time, pushing herself to cover rent, bills, and childcare and such. To friends, she sometimes described herself as a, quote, weekend mom, a phrase that reflected how much of her time was consumed by work and how often her weeknights were swallowed by shifts, commutes to and from, and simply exhaustion. People who encountered her in day-to-day life saw both effort and strain. Her landlady described her as a hardworking single mother, but maintaining stability required constant coordination, right? She's a single mother. So this means babysitters, relatives, friends helping out, and those arrangements don't always hold.
Right.
So when childcare fell through, Michelle sometimes brought Timothy to work with her because there simply wasn't another option for her. Now, coworkers and employers remembered patterns that suggested how overwhelmed she could be at times. Michelle was frequently late arriving to work. On other occasions, when she knew she would be late getting home, babysitters said that she sometimes failed to call ahead of time to explain or adjust the plans, creating friction and stress for the people watching her son, Timothy. So her life really ran on tight margins, right? One missed call, one canceled babysitter, one late shift could throw the entire day into chaos. That fragile system became even harder to maintain in January of 1990. This is when Michelle's sister and brother-in-law, the very people that she leaned on heavily for help and childcare and general support, the two of them moved to Florida. Their departure removed a critical safety net for Michelle and Timothy. The everyday help they provided had been woven into their routine, and without them, Michelle had to find new solutions quickly.
It might have been one of the reasons why they chose to leave, too.
Around this period, when Timothy was about 4 years old, another temporary arrangement was made. Michelle's brother, who lived in another state, took Timothy in for about 2 months' time. So he lived there with his uncle, with Michelle's brother, for about 2 months. The purpose of this was very practical, actually. Michelle wanted a window of time to work additional hours, probably working multiple jobs at this time, Captain. She was trying to get ahead financially because what she wanted to do was save up some money with a very particular goal in mind: school tuition. She wanted Timothy to attend private school, and so she needed some time to be able to focus on making that goal possible. Friends and family also remembered her in a more tender, attentive mode with her son. They recalled that she took Timothy to the dentist regularly and brought him on camping trips and vacations. They described her saving carefully so that she could enroll him in kindergarten at St. Mary's School. That's that private school, once he reached school age. When Timothy was in school, she did help him with his homework and routinely bought him new clothes. She seemed committed to his care and committed to investing in her son's future. Now, we talked about some of her complications with her work, and a lot of that seems to have to do with childcare. We're going to see this in Timothy's school life too once he gets of school age, because at the same time, the record of Timothy's school life reflected that same instability at the home.
Right.
He had notable attendance problems. He missed 25 days of school, and on 63 of the days that he did attend, he arrived late. So meaning that even on many of the days that he was in school, he started behind.
If you miss so many days or you're late so many times, they won't give you that special permission to go to that school anymore.
So during these years, the time that she moved back and getting Timothy, her son, to school age, Michelle's personal relationships also added tension to their small household. Timothy became a point of friction between Michelle and what's reported as two men that she dated during that 5-year stretch. One of these men she was briefly engaged to. Both men would later say that they liked Michelle and they really liked Timothy, but they felt that they were just simply too young to commit to the role of being a stepfather, being a husband and being a stepfather. Keep in mind, when our case breaks, Michelle's only 23. Now, I don't know the ages of these men, but I'm assuming they're roughly about the same age as young Michelle. Now, thank you for listening, but you knew before you stepped into the garage that this would all lead up to something bad happening. Our good folks listening from the great state of New Jersey, where you never have to pump your own gasoline, have already likely heard of this case. This is a case that has stretched on for decades.
Yeah, but wouldn't it be nice, just one episode, we explain this person's background, and then we go, Then he went to college and had a successful career, and nothing bad happened.
Saved 40 kids from a burning building.
Yep. End of the episode.
Well,
thanks for listening.
In fairness, there are a lot of good people woven into these stories that we've told over the years, but they usually don't take center stage. And if they do, they're usually the victim.
Right.
So if we didn't have your full attention, we are going to need it starting now as we're going to move into the day in question, and things are going to move rather rapidly, and we have a lot of moving parts and pieces here. So pay attention. All right, let's lead into it. This is Friday, May 24th, 1991. It's the first day of the Memorial Day weekend that year. Michelle Ledzinski was in the middle of making small, ordinary plans that felt big because summer was so close. The school year was winding down, and she was already thinking ahead to what came next for her young son, Timothy. Timothy was nearing the end of kindergarten, and Michelle wanted him to look nice for this milestone. She took him shopping for some new clothes. She wanted things that would go with the graduation gown. You know, sometimes these kids, 5th grade or kindergarten, they'll do these moments where they'll host a graduation for the youngsters. So she wanted to find some clothing that would go along with that graduation gown that she had already purchased for him. And summer break was waiting right around the corner, so probably needed some summer clothes at the same time. Now, the other thing going on in their lives, Captain, was Michelle was also mapping out something bigger. This was a trip. She was making plans to visit her sister, who lived in Florida. The idea was once that the school year had ended, she would take Timothy down to Florida to spend some time with her sister and her sister's family. And while they are there, they would go to Disney World. So this was really something big to look forward to after the last day of school. That Friday evening, Michelle mentioned to a neighbor that the next day on Saturday, May 25th, 1991, she intended to take her son Timothy along with a niece to the South Amboy Elks Club Carnival, which was taking place in nearby Sayreville. The carnival was being held at Kennedy Park. The neighbor would later recall that Michelle and Timothy both seemed to be in good spirits, the kind of mood that really matched the vibe of the holiday weekend. Then Saturday, May 25th, 1991 arrived. Around 11 a.m., a neighbor saw Michelle and Timothy leaving their home. So mother and son heading out for the day. But we should note here that this became the last time Timothy Wiltsey was seen alive by anyone who knew him other than Michelle. Michelle later described the day as a series of normal family activities. She said that she and Timothy went to a park in nearby Holmdel. That afternoon, they played kickball, they walked around the lake, they visited the petting zoo. As the day moved toward the evening, the plan about the niece and the carnival began to change. So for reasons that remain unclear, Michelle did not pick up her niece after all. Over the years, 2 versions of what happened have circulated. In one account, Michelle called the night before and told the parents that she would not be able to pick up the niece and take her to the carnival. In another account, she didn't call at all. So decades later, it's difficult to determine which version is accurate, but remains consistent is the outcome. The niece was not picked up, and according to some reports, the family was not informed beforehand.
Well, and we also have evidence that she wasn't the greatest communicator when it came to plans.
That's true. So instead, Michelle went straight to the carnival. She arrived at Kennedy Park Carnival in Sayreville shortly before 7 p.m. that Saturday. The atmosphere there would have been what people would expect from a community event, crowds moving between rides and games, families keeping track of children among lights, music, and noise and such. At some point after arriving, Michelle encountered another niece. So to be clear, this is a different niece. Her name is Jennifer Blair, who was there with a friend. When Jennifer and her friends saw Michelle, something about her stood out immediately. She appeared to be urgently looking around. Michelle told them that something is wrong, that she had lost sight of Timothy. According to what she said in that moment to her niece Jennifer, she said that she had left Timothy waiting in a ride line while she went to buy a soda. When she returned, he was gone. So with that situation suddenly shifting from an evening outing to a search, the three of them moved quickly to report the incident. They went to a Sayreville auxiliary police officer at the carnival and told the officer that Timothy, the little boy, 5 years old, was missing. And this is now the Timothy Wiltsey missing persons investigation.
Yeah, but just to be clear, we don't have anybody saying that they saw them together.
Well, that's where this gets all a bit hazy, right?
Yeah.
When we get down into the muck and the mire of this whole situation, it's complex. It might not need to be so complex, but it is. Now, so to people that closest to the little boy, he's known as Timmy, the 5-year-old boy who loved Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, lived with his mother Michelle in South Amboy, New Jersey, is missing, right? So the story is that on that Saturday, May 25th, 1991, Timmy disappeared during a trip to a carnival in Sayreville, in nearby Sayreville. Let's zoom in a little closer, shall we, to take a look at Kennedy Park on that Saturday evening. The carnival was crowded with hundreds of people moving through the park, drawn to rides, the booths and such. This was on the fairgrounds along Washington Road in Sayreville. Michelle said that after arriving, remember, she said she arrived there around 7-ish. She bought a bunch of ride tickets. Her and Timmy were having a good time. Then the time came for refreshments. Michelle says she was standing in line to get a soda. Then she gets to the front of the line. You know, you got to wait for a bit. Then she gets to the front of the line. She buys the soda. She says she paid with a $10 bill. So she is waiting on her change. She's busy watching the people working the refreshment stand. She gets her change, turns around toward Timmy, and he's gone. It's just seconds. It was just seconds, maybe 2 minutes, and Timmy was gone. Michelle starts looking and calling for him. So this is all going down, described as occurring sometime between 7:30 p.m. and 8:30 p.m. Michelle's niece arrives with another person. We had mentioned her already, Jennifer and the friend. The friend, this someone else, this other person, is someone who already knew both Michelle and Timmy.
Right.
They see Michelle, but no Timmy. Michelle said she had not seen Timmy for about 15 minutes by this point. The three searched together and then alerted a police officer who was working the event. This is when Mother Michelle officially reports Timmy as missing.
Right, but are they stating what her demeanor was? Was she in a panic? Did she seem calm?
Well, we get conflicting reports about her demeanor, her actions that night. And to me, there are great contrast in those reports, which makes it difficult for me to figure out which side I believe. I also believe that in this state of, let's say she was panicking. I can't speak for everyone else, but me, I know that sometimes there's highs and lows in those moments, right? And anytime, I would imagine if you're looking for a child, there's probably moments where you think, oh, I'm just seconds away from finding him. And you may be behaving one way with optimism, or there's other moments of, oh my God, where is he? This report of the missing little boy sent off an urgent response, obviously. Almost immediately, though, the carnival itself became the center of a widening search operation. Police focused first on the park where the carnival had been held, moving through the grounds with the assumption that if Timmy had wandered off, someone would find him rather quickly, right? It'd be at a ride or a booth. But as the initial sweep failed to locate him, the situation escalated. The carnival was shut down a decision that reflected both the seriousness of the missing kid report and the need to freeze the scene before more people came and went.
Ready to binge your next crime thriller? Sean Bean stars in This City Is Ours on AMC+. When a drug kingpin steps down from the throne, loyalty turns lethal. Dubbed the Scouse Sopranos. See one family's fight for power over the gritty streets of Liverpool. Rolling Stone UK calls it a firecracker of a series. You don't want to miss This City Is Ours. Now streaming on AMC+. Learn more at amcplus.com.
As routines shift and summer plans begin, it's easy for learning to take a back seat. IXL makes it simple to stay sharp and keep skills fresh in just a few minutes a day. IXL is an award-winning online learning platform that helps kids truly understand what they're learning, whether they're building math confidence, strengthening reading and writing skills, or reviewing science concepts. IXL is used in 96 of the top 100 school districts in the U.S., and studies show kids who use IXL score higher on tests, proven in all 50 states. I love IXL. You're going to love IXL. I come from a family of teachers. They all love and recommend IXL. We use IXL to keep my nieces and nephews sharp over the summer, building confidence in challenging areas, and not just staying sharp, but getting ahead for the next year. It's easy to track their progress, and IXL is flexible for travel, camps, and summer schedules. This is why all the teachers in my family, and me, I'm not a teacher, but I'm the captain, I recommend IXL. Make an impact on your child's learning and get IXL now. And True Crime Garage listeners, get an exclusive 20% off IXL membership when they sign up today at IXL.com/garage. That's IXL.com/garage to get the most effective learning program out there at the best price. So help your kids stay sharp over the summer with IXL. Check out IXL.com/garage today.
Are you tired of spending hundreds on crazy high wireless bills, bogus fees, and free perks that cost you more in the long run? Then a premium wireless plan from Mint Mobile for $15 a month might be right for you. Bring your own phone and number, activate with eSIM in minutes, and start saving immediately. No long-term contracts, no hassle. I've got several of my family members to make the switch to Mint Mobile. They are enjoying the wonderful, reliable service that they get, and they're saving a bunch of money compared to their previous services. You know the ones I'm talking about, the big wireless carriers. Make the switch, save some money, go with Mint Mobile. If you like your money, Mint Mobile is for you. Shop plans at mintmobile.com/TCG. That's mintmobile.com/TCG. Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month 5GB plan required, equivalent to $15 per month. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details. If you're trying to be more intentional about what you wear day to day, Quince can help with that. They've got pieces that feel easy, comfortable, and still put together. The fabrics feel elevated and the fits are clean. Think 100% European linen shorts and shirts from $34. They're lightweight, breathable, and comfortable. Great for spring, great for summer. Everything is priced 50 to 80% less than what you'd find at similar brands. Quince works directly with ethical factories and cuts out the middlemen, so you're getting premium materials without the markup. I love Quince. I'm a Quince man. Check my closet. You'll know that I'm telling the truth. I have a lot of their gear for fall, for winter. I love their sunglasses. And my most recent purchase, a 100% European linen relaxed short sleeve shirt. The really good looking one with the buttons in the front and the collar. They have 5 different colors. It's lightweight, breathable, and it looks fantastic. The fit is unreal. And you can shop for more than just men at quince.com. They have things for women, babies, kids, all kinds of new gear, bestsellers. Go to quince.com, check it out. You are going to like it. Refresh your every day with luxury you'll actually use. Head to quince.com/garage for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/garage for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/garage.
All right, we are back. Tall cans in the air. Cheers to you, Colonel.
Cheers to you, Captain. I'm back. He's back. I wish Timmy was back.
Mm-hmm.
We are back at the Carnival, but now where we left off, the Carnival has been shut down. And we have responders moving in force. Eventually, this is going to grow, Captain, to police officers, firefighters, even volunteers. And at some point, we get trained dogs who are going to spread out across the grounds and the surrounding area, searching with intensity at a time when time matters most. Dogs are looking for a scent. Searchers checked places that a small child might hide or even become stuck. They're really looking for any sign that Timmy had been there. Maybe, anything that he could have dropped.
Right. Does the dog do the dogs pick up on any scent?
I think they picked up on a lot of different smells.
A lot of smells.
A lot of smells at this carnival.
This has a lot of smells here.
But I nothing that would lead to the boy, sadly. And really all this effort, the search produced a troubling absence, right? And a troubling absence of no Timmy, but also no evidence that he had been in the area at all.
Yeah, if I'm a police officer on the scene or a detective on the scene, my first thing is, do I have anybody that sees them together? Does anybody see Timmy when she buys the tickets for the rides? Does anybody see Timmy? Does anybody recognize her and Timmy going on any rides? And also, how many tickets did she purchase, and were any of them gone? So if we can get a receipt of, we know she bought 20 tickets and she has 20 tickets left, but she's telling law enforcement that they went on some rides. Well, how did you get on those rides?
Yeah, and I wouldn't expect a receipt to be available. Maybe it would be, but I love these types of festivals and carnivals. Like, one of the things that I look forward to the most every summer are these types of events. And oftentimes you buy ride tickets and it's cash only. And you hand them the cash and they hand you a stack of tickets.
Right.
And, but you're on to the right thing here, my friend, because what verification was done to back up any part or portions of Michelle's story gets complicated. And the reason why I think it does is they're not in that mode at that time. It's all hands on deck looking for the boy, not questioning mom. I know we're going down a different road here than maybe some expected, but if one were trying to cause confusion, there's a lot of confusion going on at this time. So as that night unfolded and the search continued, attention naturally turned to the people at the center of this report, especially Timmy's mother. So let's get into you had asked about her demeanor. We have some stories coming out from that night. One is from a firefighter who says that they drove Michelle back to her house with the purpose of retrieving something for the dogs to use for Timmy's scent.
Yeah, also kind of a weird thing, because if you have a small child and you're going to this carnival, you'd think that should pack an extra jacket, or most of the time when somebody has a child, they have other items in their car just in case.
This person who was driving her back to her house to retrieve these items said that they needed to make a stop along the way. This was Michelle wanted to stop at the bar where her then boyfriend at the time, was working. She wanted to inform him what was going on. This firefighter says that they remembered Michelle as visibly overwhelmed with the situation, crying and speaking incoherently. The search goes on, and the search is eventually suspended around 2 a.m. A Sayreville police detective was in charge of returning Michelle home for the night.
Yeah, but this is not a good sign.
And look, to back up what you were saying, like, maybe I get it. Maybe whatever extra items she brought with her, the boy had in his possession, and then he went missing. But she had to be driven home. I think this is an indicator as to her state. And to me, this is a bit of evidence backing up these accounts of people saying that, look, she was really messed up by this. Because what we do know is she drove to the carnival. Now, where my mind goes to, following your good lead there, Captain, is there was nothing in the car that could provide a scent of the boy. Anyway, we continue on.
Well, and a couple things, because in the initial moments, I don't know if there's any evidence as far as, like, is she involved? Was Timothy even there? Whether she stays calm. Some people in that moment of panic, they're going to stay calm because they're like, if I stay calm, I can figure this out. But once they're stopping the search, once they're saying, we're going to take you home, and like you said, she is in a state where they feel like they have to drive her home.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that can go two ways. It's either she is distraught and she's beside herself because she can't find her child, right? And it's appropriate. It's a appropriate time to freak out. But if this is some kind of weird ruse that she has set up, this is all unfolding, so you can see why she would be overly emotional also. Or, like, it could be an act, or it could be real, because she is now contemplating whatever actions she did. Negative actions, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. The police detective who drove her home that night, in his report, he wrote that Michelle was tearful. Mm-hmm. And in the time period after she was returned home, she did call her sister to inform her sister about Timmy's disappearance. Her sister later said that Michelle cried during that phone call. So, kind of taken together here, these accounts form a timeline of the start of the search itself, but also the personal shock that seemed to be going on with Michelle and with Timmy's family as the hours passed without any answers or without finding the boy. This case, just by its nature, involves a lot of people, perhaps a lot of witnesses to both what did happen and maybe what did not happen. So to be thorough and to look from all angles, bear with me as we go through a summary from the Central New Jersey Home News. The headline was, "Police Believe Lost Boy Abducted." This will lead into some of the key events of the following day as well on that Sunday. Now, by the time the article was published on May 28th, the search had already been underway for days. The police were continuing their efforts looking for the boy. The disappearance and the search traced back to Michelle realizing that he was missing, or as her story goes, when she notified the Carnival authorities.
Mm-hmm.
So then at about 8:30 p.m.-ish, the police are called. Security at the Carnival that night was said to include about 6 off-duty officers, police officers who were working. Some of them were directing traffic, and some of them were patrolling the grounds of the event on foot. But despite the presence of security and the density of the crowd, no witness came forward to say that they had seen what happened, right? Nobody comes forward at least to say that either eyewitness seeing a little boy wandering off or being snatched up.
Right. And this, to me, this would be hunting ground, right? You have a carnival. There's going to be a lot of kids there, probably more kids to parents. So if you're a pedo well, this would be a place that you could find a victim. And then the other problem too is with these little carnivals that some of these individuals are not local, the ones that are providing a ride or possibly setting up to be a vendor of some kind.
And to your point, a lot of the visitors themselves might not be local, right? I mean, we
They
know
might
that
be from neighboring counties.
exactly. We know Michelle and Timothy were from a neighboring town. So as we said, the search expanded quickly, and police would later describe the effort as exhaustive, a search that ran for more than 7 hours the night that he vanished, and then carried on early the next day. So it sounds like, I don't know what time these resources were pulled in, Captain, but it's reported that a police helicopter was used, 4-wheel drive vehicles, a boat, a search boat at one time, yet they get nothing concrete, no trace of Timothy. We know no clothing was found that evening, no confirmed sighting of him being snatched, or, hey, I saw a boy by himself outside of the festival grounds.
Yeah. And this might be a weird question, but when
fire away.
When her family members see her at the carnival, is she holding a soda?
That's a detail that is not clear to me.
Because
that's her story, right? She should be holding a soda.
Right. If she's not, then you go, did she chug the soda? Get those fizzy bubbles all up in your nose. Or again, is this a ruse? Because like you said, she was supposed to take her niece. So you go, okay, well, she doesn't take her niece because her niece would be an eyewitness. That'd be more difficult. So I think this story is very bizarre because I don't even know if we can prove if Timothy was at the carnival.
Well, and the flip of that, though, is I don't know that we can prove that he wasn't at the carnival. And it goes back to the confusion of the situation, and it's natural confusion, right? Because in that moment, these details absolutely matter to the story now, and they absolutely matter to the case and the investigation. However, in the moment, living in the moment, what do we have going on? We have everybody that's rushed into this idea of looking for this little boy. So it could be that everything that Michelle is saying is absolutely the truth, but nothing was checked or verified to confirm that because everybody was busy looking for the boy. Or nothing she's saying is the truth, and these details were lost due to the confusion in the haste of looking for the little boy.
In a lot of these cases, it's time, or the time period becomes really a big deal because, like you were just saying, oh, well, most of these carnivals, you just pay in cash. Well, yeah, in 91 you do, but today, most of these places you pay by card, or most of these vendors will at least have that option. So if I go to a street festival or these, beer fest or what they call them, street food fest or whatever, I can go, well, I went and got this bratwurst at this time. Here's my receipt. And if I didn't get a receipt, you can go, well, I got a bratwurst at this time. You can then go to that vendor and they can look up the credit card transaction. So now we get a better, more precise timeline. But this is 91. So I'm guessing everything that she did was in cash.
Well, and one thing we don't have the advantage of in this story that we did in a story that some might consider to be similar in its nature is, a long time ago, we covered the DeJuan Sims case. 4-year-old boy reported missing from a Michigan mall in 1994.
Yeah.
It was the Wonderland Mall in Livonia, I think it was, Michigan. And in that story, mom says that she lost track of her boy. He was holding her hand and then let go. And then like 30, 45 seconds later, she turns to look down at the boy and he's gone.
Yeah.
And she says that somewhere between the corridor that ran from the Target store to the mall, the actual mall, he disappears in the crowd. In that story that takes place in 1994, they had security cameras and they reviewed the surveillance footage, and those cameras at no point, what the security guards and what the police say is, we never see the little boy with the mother.
Right.
She does point to a little boy on the screen and says, well, that's him. But the two don't seem to be interacting in the way that they thought a mother and son would, or that, as she described, by holding the hand of the child. Here, it's a carnival. I mean, we've all been to carnivals, and it's not
everybody.
It's I know you keep going to receipts. Frankly, some guy asking for receipts at the carnival, we're going to kindly ask you to leave, sir. Like, it's just not, it's really not.
I'll take a handwritten receipt if
that kind of structure
if possible. But here's the other thing though, too. It's hard for us to visualize what this carnival looked like. How many rides were they? How many rides did they have? How many vendors did they have? How large? I mean, just the area. We used to go to a church festival, but everything was contained to the front area of the church. And so.
Yeah, this was going to be larger than that, from my understanding, as it was held at the fairgrounds.
Right. So you're talking about a larger facility. And so if there's more people, like you said, to your point, you go, well, she bought tickets. Well, does she have those tickets? Is she holding the tickets? Is she holding her soda? Can we go back to that ticket lady? And it might not be possible, because that ticket lady or the ticket man or whoever sold her those tickets might have said, well, I sold tickets to hundreds of people. I can't remember this person. So it becomes very, this story becomes very difficult, because there's so much evidence. Well, was he there? We don't know, but we have no evidence that he wasn't there. And every little point in this story, there's an argument for and against evidence of whether it was just simply a mother taking her son to this event, or was this some kind of ruse? By
morning time, starting at 6 a.m., a larger, more systematic effort took hold. A line search was conducted across approximately 1 square mile around Kennedy Park. Searchers formed a human chain and moved through the area in coordinated sweeps, east to west and then north to south. So by this point, they are scouring locations that bordered the carnival's footprint, and then eventually extending into nearby community spaces.
And to me, this is actually scary, because sometimes if there's a perpetrator in this case, they might have been involved in the searches.
At the same time that morning, Michelle brought clothing to the police station. It's my understanding that this clothing was brought there for the purpose that Timmy would, something for him to change into if he were in fact to be found. A detective who was there at the time would recall Michelle's demeanor as distraught. So that's another person saying that, describing her demeanor one way. I'm going into this and describing her actions and what would be her perceived emotional state.
Right.
Because later there are going to be people that say, well, she didn't seem to care at all. She seemed unaffected by this. Well, the initial reports are completely different than that.
Yeah. And I actually think, like I said, if she's distraught, well, you can make an argument she's distraught because her son's missing. And you could then make an argument that she's distraught because whatever plan that she had is now unfolding. And she has to deal with that, the reality of whatever her plan was, if she had a plan.
Yes. But also one could make the argument that police are honing in on the people that say she seemed unaffected and unemotional about the situation because she's guilty of something. And they're purposely ignoring these statements, some by their own department members, that say the opposite of that. So this news article described more than 200 rescue workers and volunteers involved over a 2-day period searching for the boy. As said, we used additional specialized resources, all to which no trace of the child was found. Now, a sergeant with the police department would describe the situation as, and the people looking for the boy, as discouraging. The reasoning for this statement is blunt. If Timothy had simply wandered off, they believe the search should have found him, probably quickly, instead of the absence of evidence combined with time elapsed. I mean, this is leading to a troubling conclusion, right? They did not feel that he had wandered off, wandered away. They felt he had been abducted.
Yeah, it'd also be difficult too, because during this search, they probably found other items left by children or dropped by children that have nothing to do with Timmy. So, but in that moment, when you see something, oh, here's a stuffed animal, or here's a shoe, or here's whatever, probably quickly able to realize that these items didn't have anything to do with Timmy.
In the paper, they openly spoke and said investigators could not rule out different motives or possible scenarios. A kidnapping by a stranger, an abduction by someone seeking to profit, an individual described as lonely, maybe a woman who wants a child, or someone who is a pedophile. Words straight from the newspaper. Now, that widening focus included attention on Timothy's father, George Wiltsey, who lived in Walker, which is in Lynn County, Iowa. Police said George had not seen Timothy in at least 4 years. The account stated that the FBI interviewed the father in Iowa. So this would have been the very next day on that Sunday. He goes missing on a Saturday. The FBI interviewed the father, as well as them sending local police from Walker to interview the father. And they confirmed that he was still in the state of Iowa. So many, many, many miles away at the time that Timothy disappeared in New Jersey. Additional background came through a telephone interview with Jerry Wiltsey. This is a man identified as George's brother, so therefore Timothy's uncle. Jerry stated that his brother George did not have a telephone, but in their small town, there's only like 600 people that live there. So he said that he would see his brother or bump into his brother almost every day. He did say, he told the newspapers, look, my brother did not see Timothy, nor did he try to gain custody of the child once the mother and the child left for New Jersey. And Jerry said, he's quoted as saying, there is no question of a custody battle. He says, look, my brother did not want Michelle to leave. He wanted her and the boy to stay. But once she left, she made it clear, we don't want nothing to do with you. When pressed as to, well, why wouldn't your brother own a phone? It's 1991. He simply says, look, the place, he lives next door to our mother. And when he bought the place, it didn't have a phone. He never put one in. He doesn't like to be bothered or disturbed. When he needs to use a phone, he just walks next door to his mother's house and uses her phone.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think the other thing,
I'm jealous of that. I'm jealous of that. Take away my phone.
Yeah, hold on a second. I'm going to get this hammer and smash mine real quick. But also, you'd have to go, we don't know if Timothy's father would even know what Timothy looked like.
Right. That's a good point.
Because there's a big difference. He goes missing when he was 5, and if he didn't see him for 4 years, so he saw him as a 1-year-old.
He seemed to know where to send the mail, though. And I would like to,
that's interesting.
But again, she lived with her brother or her sister, one of the two. She lived with relatives for 2 years. So maybe he was sending the mail there, which are people that he would know. Or maybe he never knew the addresses.
Look up. Yeah.
And again, he's not really part of the equation. So I don't know how far down this avenue we need to go. He's ruled out rather quickly. Meanwhile, we have Ron Romano, an FBI special agent based in the area, that confirmed that the FBI was assisting the Sayreville police investigation, though he stated to the newspaper that he was not authorized to provide any details. A physical description of Timothy was included in the reporting, emphasizing what the public should be looking for, stating that the little boy was last seen wearing a red tank top, shorts with writing on them, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle sneakers. He had brown hair and a crew cut, weighed between 45 and 50 pounds, and was between 3 feet 2 inches and 3 feet 4 inches tall. Tips did come in within the first couple days. It's reported that about 30 calls came into police headquarters, and as we know, unfortunately, none of them led to finding Timmy. So that's the search. Let's get into some of the investigation and potential witnesses, right? And this is, like we said, witnesses to what happened and maybe witnesses to what didn't happen. And this is where it goes back to the question that you had asked, or something you had presented earlier, where I said, look, there's kind of conflicting reports here. So police interviewed Carnival workers and people visiting the event, trying to reconstruct where Timmy had been and who might have seen him. They listened for details about clothing, timing, other people seen in the area, maybe even direction of travel if somebody saw the boy. Small facts that could really mean something, lead to something meaningful. One Carnival worker reported that shortly after 7 p.m. on Saturday, she had seen a boy come up to her stand. The boy, she said, was wearing a red tank top, red printed shorts, and this all sounds similar to the clothing Michelle said Timmy had been wearing.
Right.
According to that worker, the boy was then called away by a woman. Roughly 10 minutes later, this same worker said that she saw that same woman walking around calling out loudly, saying either Timmy or Jimmy.
Mm-hmm.
And she said that the woman she saw appeared to look concerned. The worker later identified Timmy in a group photograph.
Well, that's something.
It is something. When she later saw Michelle in person, she said Michelle might have been the woman she had observed, but she couldn't confirm that, which is interesting to me, right? She picks the boy out of a group photograph and then can't confirm 100% that Michelle is the woman that she saw. This, to me, I get the vibe that this woman is doing her best to be truthful, right? Like some people are just trying to help the situation, and they're overly helpful to the point of where they go beyond being truthful, and they're like, yeah, that's the boy I saw, and yeah, that's the woman I saw 100%.
Right.
That's not what's happening here. So I think this woman's doing her best to try.
Well, it's also possible that she didn't see Timothy's mother. It might have been somebody else that was calling out, because at some point people were looking for Timmy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that becomes interesting.
I didn't want to get to this early, but maybe I should, because it will make more sense here. But there's a different report of this same situation here. The other report of this was that one of the officers that spoke with this Carnival worker didn't believe her simply because of her appearance. He said that she appeared to have been up all night. Without saying it, I think he was trying to say that he believed she was on something.
Right.
Because he's like, she looked disheveled. She looked confused. She looked like she had been up all night. She had body odor. And he is like, based on her appearance, he's like, I think she might have been trying to be helpful, but I had a hard time believing what she was saying. I think what he's saying is that given her, the way he perceived her to be acting and the way she presented herself, presented a less than credible person.
Right, but she could have been on something and still saw what she saw.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, another Carnival worker gave a separate account that fixed the timeline even a little more tightly. He said he recalled helping a boy in a tank top. Again, we know that Timmy was reported to have been wearing a tank top. He reported helping a boy in a tank top, shorts, and sneakers that were decorated with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. He said he helped the boy off of a ride at around 7:15 p.m. So he's working the ride. And the boy was small, so he had to help him off of the ride.
Right.
He later told police that he was certain that the child that he remembered was the same boy he saw on missing persons posters after the disappearance.
See, and that makes sense to me because if you're having a bunch of kids get on rides, let's say 90% of the time, you don't have to help anybody.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that you would have to help this kid off the ride, more likely to remember him.
Then came another piece of recollection from 3 teenagers who told police that they had interacted briefly with a boy as they were leaving the carnival. They say that they remembered warning the little boy to watch out for broken glass on a walkway. In their account, the boy was accompanied by 3 adults, 2 men and a woman, and the boy was wearing Ninja Turtle sneakers. Each of these stories came from different people describing different moments, and investigators treating them as possible fragments of the same larger picture. A child in recognizable clothing moving through the carnival during the early evening hours, seen by multiple witnesses and then gone.
Yeah, but these shoes, they're not one of one.
Right. I'm glad you pointed that out because these Ninja Turtles are making a resurgence. I'm seeing Ninja Turtles all over the place these days.
Ninja, go Ninja.
But I think there was a big time period, or at least I just wasn't paying attention, that I didn't see Ninja Turtles everywhere. 1991.
Doctor, can you help me? What's your symptoms? I'm seeing Ninja Turtles
everywhere. Lock them up. In 1991, the Ninja Turtles would have been extremely popular.
Yeah, I had a friend that went to see him in concert, and I was very jealous.
Was it with Vanilla Ice?
No, it was just Ninja Turtles, and I remember and also I think he went to see The Simpsons because The Simpsons had a album. Don't know why that's a thing. Anytime somebody gets popular, we're like, they should make a record.
Especially in the 90s, that was a thing. So to add a little bit to this story here, 1990, the movie Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles come out. And this is after they're already very popular, right? The cartoon was a big thing. I think
arcade game. Yeah.
Arcade game came out at some point. And then in 1991, so this would be just a couple months before, it would be 2 months before Timmy goes missing. The second movie comes out, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze, which I think might have been even a bigger hit than the first one.
Well, because it had the ooze.
It had the ooze and it had Vanilla Ice.
Ice Baby.
I was in that weird age where I loved the first movie and I had outgrown them by the time the second movie came out. So
That's
I don't have.
You didn't see them in concert.
That's right. I was not lucky enough to witness the Turtles in concert.
And you know that there was a kid that went to see all their concerts and followed around the Ninja Turtles just like the Grateful Dead.
While investigators gathered statements from people at the carnival, both working and visitors, they worked to eliminate or confirm potential avenues in their investigation. On the day following the disappearance, the Sayreville police searched Michelle's car. It was still parked at the carnival when they were searching it. So she didn't have time to go there. You know, she didn't retrieve the vehicle or drive it home and manipulate anything in the vehicle. They said they found nothing that helped their investigation. 2 days after that, the county prosecutor's office searched her home. Again, they said that they found nothing that helped the investigation. The FBI also analyzed her garbage. Now, usually when they're searching your garbage, they don't let you know that this is going on.
Right.
So they get permission to search the garbage from the landlord. And they say that effort too produced no useful leads as to what could have happened with Timothy. Police also arranged to place a register tap on Michelle's home telephone to record the phone numbers of incoming calls. This is good work, my friends, because in high-profile missing child cases, tips, threats, and hoaxes can arrive via telephone, and investigators want a clear record of what comes in on that telephone line and from where does it come.
And like I said, if there's a perpetrator or unknown stranger to Timothy, this individual might insert themselves into the search, or they might just call the mother, even just, and it might not to be to taunt her. It might just be to offer up some information or to show their concern or whatever. We see that all the time, and especially in child cases.
Yeah. And a hoax. Unfortunately, we've reviewed several missing child cases, especially in the 80s, early 90s, where someone will call in and pretend to be the missing kid. And then later it's proven that that person is not the kid. It's just, usually it's just some teenager or, some deranged woman.
Yeah.
Through this period, people who were regularly in contact with Michelle, they did describe her as deeply affected by Timmy's unexplained absence. She told her sister during this time that she could not sleep at all or eat. Her boyfriend at the time recalled her saying that she could not hold any food down. Now, to me, this goes to the complete opposite of that, but I've never been in these shoes, thank God, and I hope that I never am. But within 2 weeks of May 25th, the day that her son went missing, Michelle moved out of her house in South Amboy, saying that she was doing so to avoid the media attention. Now, this case is a little foreign to us, Captain, as we're Ohio boys. But as I said earlier, people that grew up in New Jersey, they know this case well because it was a bit of a media frenzy. And this case did receive nationwide attention very quickly. So she being Michelle, expressed frustration with the expectations that she said had been placed upon her by the public.
Mm-hmm.
She said, so she's describing a sense that people were waiting for a particular kind of televised grief. Quote, everyone is waiting to see a grieving mother on TV break down, crying, hysterical, because the public, they thrive on that stuff. But I am not going to do that, end quote.
Well, and everybody reacts differently. And I think when we see these cases, we start judging. Well, I would handle it this way, or I would handle it this way. I mean, they did so in like the John Benet Ramsey case, every little detail. But like, remember in the Ramsey case, John Ramsey states, I felt if I could keep my wits about me, that I'd be more helpful, that I could solve this. And I feel like that's where I'd go to. So maybe that's where she was going to. And then probably hearing criticism because of that, or people turning a suspicious eye towards her because she's not acting in the way that people think that she should.
And she's a single parent, so she's the solo representative of this family at this point.
Yeah, and I think it makes sense, though. I mean, I have to keep my wits about me to try to figure out what happened.
As the days became weeks and the weeks stretched into an unresolved case, the search for Timmy broadened into the kind of public-facing effort familiar to many missing child investigations. The case was televised twice on America's Most Wanted. Timmy's photograph was circulated widely on thousands of missing child flyers and even on milk cartons, so that strangers far from Sayreville might recognize the face and connect it to a sighting. And hanging over all of it was a painful detail, noted in a local newspaper. On May 25th, the day Timothy went missing, this was the same day as National Missing Children's Day. The newspaper called that coincidence a bitter irony, a phrase that underscored how on a day meant to focus public attention on missing children, one more child's name had been added to the list, Timothy William Wiltsey, or better yet, simply Timmy, 5 years old, last reported missing from a carnival in Sayreville, New Jersey.
So much more to get to in this true crime story. Thanks for joining us here in the garage. Until the next episode.
Be good, be kind, and don't lose.
For adults with Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis symptoms, every choice matters. Tremfya offers self-injection or intravenous infusion from the start. Tremfya is administered as injections under the skin or infusions through a vein every 4 weeks, followed by injections under the skin every 4 or 8 weeks. If your doctor decides that you can self-inject Tremfya, proper training is required. Tremfya is a prescription medicine used to treat adults with moderately to severely active Crohn's disease and adults with moderately to severely active ulcerative colitis. Serious allergic reactions, increased risk of infections or lower ability to fight them, and liver problems may occur. Before treatment, get checked for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or need a vaccine. Explore what's possible. Ask your doctor about Tremfya today. Call 1-800-526-7736 to learn more or visit tremfyaradio.com.
Real talent is defined by what people can do, not where they learn to do it. So by stopping at the education section of a resume, you might throw away the perfect hire. Skills First Hiring helps you see talent others miss, like more than 70 million stars, skilled through alternative routes. Let their story unfold and gain a competitive advantage, because hiring managers who start with skills are 60% more likely to find a successful hire. Hire skills first. Learn why at tearthepaperceiling.org. Brought to you by Opportunity at Work and the Ad Council.